so today we're looking at variation word problems. So again, this little sheet is available to download. It's just hard for you to have to write word problems out. So I made out a little worksheet. And so we're looking at variation problems. And so all of these problems have a variable in them of change. And so if I, you could say, people's speed varies by 5 miles per hour. I mean, if I was going 20 miles per hour, you might be going 25 and the next person would be going 30. It's just a variation in that speed. And so when we're doing word problems, I don't think many people think of it this way, but doing a mathematical word problem is really like translating it into a different language. Just like if you were translating something in Spanish to English, you would take each individual word and translate its meaning. We're going to do the same thing in mathematics. It's just instead of translating them to another word, you're translating them to a mathematical symbol or letter or something like that. And so let's look at this. There's 4 things that can happen here. So this first one says x varies directly to k. Well, varies directly, to y. I'm sorry, I was thinking about k. Varies directly is some constant that changes the speed. Like when I was talking about 5, the variation was a variable of 5. And so it's some unknown number that we know. So anytime you see varies directly, you want to translate that to be k. And so we know x just stays x. Varies directly is going to be equal some constant. And then to y would be like that. So that's the algebraic equation that that's standing for. This next one, x varies inversely. Well, think about inverse means the opposite or to flip it. So when you have something like this, it's going to be x varies is equal some k. So remember, varies always means that equals k. But inversely to y would mean y would be on the opposite side or on the bottom. So directly means y is right next to it, and inversely means y's underneath it. Now this next one, x is directly proportional. Directly proportional is the same thing as varies. It just means it's changing in some way. So when we translate this one, it's just going to be x equals k. And because it says directly to y, then the y is right next to it. This one says inversely, so this one's just x equals k with the y underneath it. And so that's the main translation that you need for these problems. And so now with variation problems, it's like they come in 3 parts. So let's look at this first one. I'm going to break it up. So it comes in where you write the equation, and then you see another comma where you plug stuff in, and then where you solve. So I'm going to kind of write it up here. So first you write the equation, and then you plug in values, and then you solve it. So the first thing we're going to do is write the equation from this part right here, and it says x varies directly as y. So that's just x equals k times y. So we wrote our equation. So that's kind of the first step. Then we're going to plug in values. So it says x equals 10 when y equals 7. So we're going to plug a 10 in for x. We don't know k, and a 7 in for y. And then you want to, so let me plug in values and solve for k. So now we're going to solve for k by dividing by 7. So k would equal 10 sevenths. So that's our variable. And so now for step 3, we're going to go back and plug it in. So now our equation is x equals 10 sevenths over y. And then we look to see what they want you to solve. Here it wants you to find y when x is 50. So that means plug 50 in for x. And so we have this 10 sevenths y and solve for y. Well, people hate this one because it has a fraction. But remember, what do you do when you have a fraction? You just get rid of it by multiplying both sides by 7. So I'm going to multiply by 7, which is going to cancel that 7 out and give me 10y equals 350, because 7 times 50 is 350. And then to solve for y, divide by 10, so y equals 35. And that's your final answer. But you have to go through all these steps to get it. Now, sometimes there's a problem that you can just kind of figure it out in your head. But I want you to show all your work and follow all these steps, because easy ones you can figure out in your head, but there's ones like the second one that you can't. So even though I give you an easy one, I want you to show me all of the steps. Okay, let's look at this next one again. It's going to be in 3 parts where the commas are. So part 1, part 2, part 3. So first we're going to write our equation. So we're going to start right here. H varies is that equals K. Directly, which means right next to it, the square of M. So this is a little bit different, but what does the square of M mean? It just means M squared. So instead of just an M there, you're going to have an M squared. So there's our equation. Then we plug it in. H is 15 and M is 5. So 15 equals K parentheses 5 squared. Because remember, you've got to put that in parentheses if you're going to square it. And then 5 squared is 25. So we get 15 equals K times 25. And then to get K by itself, just divide by 25. So K would equal 15 over 25, or the best thing to do is reduce that to be 3/5 because it just makes it easier. Whenever you have a fraction, always reduce it in simplest form. So now we can plug that back in the formula, and now we know H equals 3/5 times M squared. So we rewrite our equation. And then find H when M is 7. So we're going to have H equals 3/5 times 7 squared. Well, 7 squared is 49, so H equals 3/5 times 49. So remember, in a fraction, that 49 is kind of always going to go on the top because it's like that's over 1. So H is just equal 3 times 49 is 147 over 5. So there's our answer. That's one that would be really hard to just figure it out. And that's why I want you showing me the work, just so that you can find it all. Okay, let's do an inverse one. So this one, again, it's in 3 parts where the commas are, there and there. So this one says M varies as that equals K, but this says inversely as P. So that means the P is going to go on the bottom. Then we're going to plug in a 3 for M. We don't know K, and a P for 5. So how do we solve a fraction? We get rid of the fraction by multiplying both sides by that denominator. So we're going to multiply by 5 and get K equals 15. Now we're going to go plug that in. So M equals 15 over P. And now do the final part. Find P when M is 5. So just be careful. It's telling me to put my 5 here. And then I have 15 over P. So again, it looks weird and I need to solve for P, but P is part of a fraction. It's the denominator, so we get rid of it by just multiplying both sides by P. So I get 5P equals 15, because those would cancel out. And then divide by 5, P equals 3. Okay, so let's use what we've learned and put it into one of these harder ones. So these are the ones where it just throws people off because there's a lot of descriptive words there that you really don't need to learn. And so I always say, start marking them out. So first we see volume. That's important. But does it matter if it's a can of tomatoes? No, that doesn't matter. So volume's important. We don't care that they're tomatoes. Directly proportional to the height is important. So do you see that we have volume, directly proportional, and height of the can? Really doesn't matter. And so we can write our equation from that. And you can pick any letters for yours, but I always just pick the first letter. So let's do V and H. So volume is directly proportional, is that equals K, to height. So there's our formula. And then it says that the volume of the can, so of the can doesn't matter, the volume is 300, whoops, and the height is 10.62. So volume is 300 equals K, and the height is 10.62. So we plug those in. To solve for K, we divide by 10.62. And so K would equal, I'm not this smart, I just went ahead and did it on the calculator. K would equal 28.25. So again, you can use your calculator on these if you need to. So now we solve for the variable, so we go back in. So now V equals 28.25H. And then we look at the very back. Find the volume of a can when the height is 15.92. So that means we need to plug that in for height, 15.92. And so when you do that on your calculator, it's 449.74. So see that problem that looks really hard. If you just start marking out the descriptive words and only look at the important words, hopefully it's not that bad. So just do the 5 on the back for practice problems, and I've got the answers up there, uploaded for you there too.